Hey guys, Corbett Thompson here for our next episode of our Mets Rant. And of course, as we go through the 2019 baseball season with the New York Mets, and of course, on behalf of the King James Radio Network at jamesisking.com, and this is exclusively, of course, on our YouTube page. But with that being said, I'll get right into the thoughts on the trade deadline in terms of what the Mets, what they did and what they didn't do ultimately. So what they did, of course, most Met fans know that what they did do was ended up trading for Marcus Stroman and getting him from the Blue Jays for a couple of prospects, including Anthony Kay, who I know some Met fans are probably upset because Kay was one of the higher rated guys in the system, but not so much throughout the league. But in terms of in the Met system anyway, Kay moved up the ladder pretty quickly, going through AA and then getting to AAA, and had his struggles in AAA. And that, whether or not that was the impetus for the Mets trading him, the fact that he did hit a oil slick, if you will, in AAA, and maybe the Mets thought, okay, maybe he's hit a bump that he can't get over, so let's move him or whatever. But I think, the Mets want, here's the thing. Okay, they get Stroman. Yes, I think it's a move for the distant future, but as the trading deadline has come and gone now, I didn't think after the Stroman move, I personally, and this isn't me, revisionist history or 2020 or anything like that, but I did not see the Mets making another move after the Stroman move. A lot of speculation as to whether they would trade Noah Syndergaard or Zach Wheeler. They did end up trading Jason Vargas to the Phillies. So I think this move was about 2019 and beyond. In other words, I don't think the Mets had any intentions whatsoever of giving up and being sellers. I don't think they had any intention whatsoever of packing it in for this year. I think primarily because there's too many massive egos in the front office between ownership, the general manager, and then the manager. There's too many massive egos here to give up, no matter how far behind they were, and no matter how many teams are in front of them in the standings, which I'm not a big, that doesn't really scare me as far as how many teams are in front of them. That doesn't scare me. If you play good baseball, that will take care of itself. But you got to be consistent, though, for the rest of the year. That's the problem. But anyway, as far as, I don't think that these guys' egos would allow them to say, okay, let's just break it down for this year and come back at it next year. That, I'm talking about Jeff Wilpon, I'm talking about Brody Van Wagenen, and I'm talking about Mickey Callaway. I remember Mickey Callaway said after a game in one of his press conferences after a game, when the Mets were going through their rough spots, he said, I didn't take time away from my kids to come and lose. And that kind of tells you where the mentality of the front office is. They didn't, Brody Van Wagenen didn't come here to rebuild and lose along the way. Jeff Wilpon didn't bring him in and take that risk to come in and lose games along the way. So I think these guys' egos are not going to allow them to all of a sudden just start selling, a fire sale or a garage sale and just sell off everything. They got rid of Vargas because he wasn't part of the long-term future. So that, neither here nor there. Stroman, perhaps, for the next couple of years, next 2-3 years, whatever, you have Stroman, you have Steven Matz, and Zach Wheeler if you can re-sign him, Noah Syndergaard if you can re-sign him. That now Syndergaard still has a couple more years to go, and of course Jacob deGrom, who you have under contract. So for the next, let's say 2 to 4 years, I think this is the pitching staff that the Mets want to go to battle with. Okay, so I did not anticipate them making any more trades. I didn't anticipate them trading Syndergaard. I didn't anticipate them trading Wheeler. Okay, now maybe they do let Wheeler walk, maybe, but I did not anticipate trading them and giving up on this year. Now, that being said, the Mets still have not addressed the fact that they need a center fielder. They still haven't addressed that, and you still got infielders playing the outfield. When Donald Smith comes back off the IL, guess what? They're going to stick him back in the outfield. So you still have infielders playing in the outfield. So there's still an issue there. Jeff McNeil and Pete Alonso obviously have been the two huge bright spots in terms of the position players this year. And you want to find McNeil a positional home. So there's that. But as far as Vargas going, I'll talk a little bit about, just for a second, about Vargas going to the Phillies. Vargas, did a decent job this year. Let's put the reporter thing in the locker room aside. I thought he did, the Tim Healy thing aside. I thought he did a decent job this year. I know earlier on a lot of people wanted to run Vargas out of town. Maybe they get their wish, but so I thought Vargas was decent for while he was there. Now, what he does with the Phillies in the stretch run remains to be seen. Maybe he can be a decent back-end rotation guy for them and get them into the playoffs. But as far as the rest of this year with the Mets go, right now they're beating up on some bad teams. The White Sox have been putrid since the All-Star break. The Pirates have been putrid since the All-Star break. So they get to face the Pirates again after the White Sox this week. So they're going to beat up on some bad teams and inch towards the 500 mark. Do I think they're going to make the playoffs? No. But that being said, I still think they're going to make a run at this. And I think that's shown clearly by the fact, that they haven't made that blockbuster move. So they're going to keep what they have and make a run at this thing. So with that being said, once they get past the White Sox and the Pirates, then that's when, it's gut check time. And they're going to have to make their move or otherwise or get off the ride, get off the roller coaster. So this is it. And so I will credit Brodie Van Wagenen for one thing, that he's going to put all his chips on the table for this year. Now, he's not getting fired this year, so he's really got nothing to lose because he's not getting fired this year. So Mickey Callaway is a different matter, but Brodie's not getting fired this year. He's not going anywhere. So he can afford to put all of his chips on the table for this year and full steam ahead. For Mickey, if I were Mickey, and the fact that, a lot of the fan base hates my guts, I probably would put my chips on the table too. So if I'm going to go out, let's go out in a blaze of glory here if we can. So I don't blame Mickey for wanting to put all of his chips on the table. He doesn't have time to rebuild for next year. Brodie does. Mickey doesn't. So, Mickey is basically on death row for the rest of this year. And whether or not he gets executed at the end of the year will be based on, these last couple of months. So, with that being said, I don't blame Mickey for putting all his cards on the table. I don't blame Brodie for putting all his cards on the table. Ownership is a whole different discussion we can discuss another day. But anyway, those are my passing thoughts on the Mets at the trade deadline and what they did do and what they didn't do. Like I said, they still need a center fielder, and they still should get, they still need a true leadoff hitter, but that's probably not going to be solved until the offseason because you'd like to see McNeil in his .350 batting average in the number 3 spot. You love to see, McNeil and Alonso in the middle of that order and move Cano, Robinson Cano, move him down somewhere. But, that being said, maybe you're a little surprised that they didn't trade Todd Frazier. Maybe you're a little surprised about that. And Frazier has been, had an up and down year. Maybe you're surprised that they're staying with Rosario at shortstop, Ahmed Rosario. But you know what? I would rather do the Ahmed Rosario to center field experiment, if you will, in the offseason. I don't want to be moving another infielder to the outfield during the season when you're supposedly trying to make a pennant drive. So let Rosario play short the rest of this year, see what happens, and then in the offseason, if you want to give him some fly balls in center field, then do that. But I would not mess with that the rest of this year. You got 2 months left. Okay, and you're trying to make this miraculous run towards the wild card. So with that being said, those are some thoughts. So we'll see what the Mets do the rest of the way. Anyway, thank you guys for listening in, watching in, and I'll catch you next time. Corbin Thompson saying goodbye, Godspeed. Anyway, the King James Radio Network at jamesisking.com. Of course, we'll be back on the air with our our high school football coverage in September and so forth. All right, you guys, now I'll talk to you later. Have a good night.